This is Fanfy.studio, a service for generating fanfiction with AI. I launched it almost a year ago, and so far it has earned me over $8,500. I barely spent any time developing it further. The service just runs and makes money, essentially passive income. In this video I'll show how I launched this project and how it grew over a full year. I'll share all the charts, numbers and conversion rates, and the lessons I learned from the experience. Hey, I'm Oleg. By day I'm a software engineer, but on this channel I'm a vibe coder. I test AI models and tools, build small projects and automations, and see what works and what doesn't. I uploaded the first video on my Russian YouTube channel on May 11, 2025. That's where my blogging journey started. If you haven't seen it, that's the video where I explain how I built Fanfy.studio, sharing my tech stack and approach to vibe coding, back when the coding models was still older. The service itself went live a bit earlier, around May 6. It was one of my first projects taken all the way to release. And interestingly, it became the first project that actually made money and turned a profit. So what is this service about? There are many sites like Figbook and Wattpad where people read and write fan stories set in their favorite universes, alternative plots and settings from games, movies and anime. All kinds of fan-made and sometimes original fiction. For example, 50 Shades of Grey started as Twilight fan fiction. But eventually all stories end, and some readers want more. They also want stories about niche fandoms and ideas. That's why I built Fanfy.studio. It basically lets users generate any story with AI based on their idea. The user picks a fandom, a universe, and describes what they want to read about. They hit generate, and within a minute they get the first chapter, roughly a 10-minute read. Then they keep generating more chapters, regenerate parts, and so on. Basically, it's like an endless book based on any idea. I built this project in about 3 weeks using Cursor. For coding models I used Sonnet 3.7 at the time, which already wrote decent code. It all started on April 14, 2025, when I made the first commit. I began with a very simple LLM chat and gradually built it into a full service. The models back then were weaker than today's, so I had to be careful and only give them fairly simple tasks. Nevertheless, the biggest phase before launch was testing. For about 2 weeks until April 26, I tried different combinations of algorithms, prompts and models. I was adding buttons and user-friendly input forms. For text generation I settled on Sonnet 3.7. It produced the best results at the time. And after testing I added user accounts, a credit system, generation limits and Google sign-in. The service was nearly ready for release. I deployed it the standard way on the basic server in Germany, no management panels or external services, just Docker plus traffic for the domain. The service went live on May 6. I posted about it in my Telegram channel, but only a few friends were subscribed at the time. A couple of them signed up to try it, generated a few chapters, and that was it. Then on May 11 I uploaded a YouTube video about building this project. It did pretty well, around 800 views in a couple of weeks. For a first video on a brand new channel, that felt solid. But it barely moved the needle for site traffic. Only a few extra users registered. Obviously, the audience for that kind of video was simply different. And the real traffic boost came after my second video on May 23. It started gaining views heavily on May 25. That brought the first noticeable wave of visitors. And on May 25, the first user who wasn't a friend of mine signed up. In the second half of June, direct visits to the site started slowly growing. On June 16, the first real subscription sale happened. It finally wasn't a friend or a test payment, a complete stranger from the internet bought something on my site. That was my first real success online. Around June 20, the site started getting traffic from search engines. For the first time, the service separated from my YouTube channel and got its own search engine traffic. But as users grew, I realized I couldn't keep generating everything on Sonnet. It was too expensive. So I switched to Gemini 2.5 Pro, which was cheaper with acceptable quality. That optimization didn't help much though, the budget kept draining. In July, I got tired of topping up my LLM aggregator account and decided to figure out where exactly all the tokens were going. And this is how I found a hole in the subscription activation logic that let users get unlimited chapter packs after paying just once. Users were paying once and generating as much as they wanted. I also realized some users wanted to generate more chapters than any subscription plan allowed. So I fixed the broken activation and switched payments to a pay-as-you-go model, letting users buy chapter packs as many times as they want without subscribing. Right after that change, new sales started rolling in. Users began buying additional chapter packs. It worked great. Over the next couple of months, user growth stalled. Existing users kept using the site, but new ones appeared rarely. Typical stagnation. In October, I tried 2 upgrades. First, I translated the site into different languages to expand its reach and added new payment methods. Second, I boosted SEO traffic by adding a public reading section for fan fiction. Stories generated by free users would land there. Paying users got a simple checkbox, I want to publish this story, which they could leave unchecked. Essentially, free users started generating content for my SEO, while paying users kept their privacy. Seemed like a fair setup. And these changes brought noticeably more traffic from Google. In early January, I fixed generation issues. Specifically, I added retries and automatic credit refunds when a chapter failed to generate. Before that, I would daily get support requests asking me to refund credits lost to errors. I'd go into the database and manually adjust balances. This fix cut down on manual database work significantly, but unfortunately it also reduced profit. Now every chapter was guaranteed to generate and spend API tokens. Before it, credits could be deducted from users without any real API cost. For example, during network's error. I was accidentally making money from my own bugs. In a few more updates in 2026, I also added a dark theme, a backup payment provider that kicked in when the main one had issues, and a couple of other small things. Now for the most interesting part.
Here comes the money!
Here we go, money talk.
What are the final numbers after a year of fixes and optimizations? The site had just over 20,000 visits. Of those, 2,600 users registered through Google, about 2,500 created their first fanfiction, 54 of them bought a paid chapter pack. Of those 54, 44 bought more than once, meaning 80% of paying users came back for more. In money terms, total revenue was about 8,500. That's roughly $150 per paying user or nearly $5 per registered user. Not bad, but there is an important detail. From that revenue, you have to subtract not just payment fees and taxes, but also the cost of AI API calls. Together, those eat about 70% of the total. And net profit comes out to roughly $2,500. On one hand, that's not a lot. On the other hand, for a project I spent around 3 weeks of total working time on over the entire year, it's quite solid. The biggest lesson from this year: you can't leave a project on autopilot if you want it to grow. You need to constantly check metrics and take next steps to see real growth instead of stagnation. Every turning point in this product happened after I sat down out of boredom to talk to GPT or Claude about what to do next. After I found something interesting while analyzing metrics. So now I'm planning to actively grow the service. I want to take SEO seriously, working regularly on the site, writing articles and using SEO techniques. I might also try paid advertising, since I now have enough user metrics to calculate the cost of acquiring one paying customer. Almost a year later, I'm genuinely surprised that such a simple startup actually works. It just makes money with almost no time investment. Thanks to it, I now truly believe that you can build solo projects online and earn from them. And you can't always predict in advance whether something will work or not. But with AI and vibe coding, development has become much easier. So I plan to build even more projects like this in the future. The cost of failure is a couple of evenings, and the potential is years of passive income. Thanks for watching. I hope this was useful to someone, maybe it even inspired somebody to start their own project. Subscribe to the channel, I'll keep sharing stories from my AI projects, showing how I build them and what approaches I use. That's all for now. See you!